welcome to another faith-based Bible story. Have you ever felt like you had almost nothing left? No strength, no answers, no certainty about tomorrow, and yet somehow God was still asking you to trust Him. Today's faith-inspired story is about a young woman named Grace, who discovered that even the smallest act of faith can open the door to a miracle. So take a deep breath, settle your heart, and let this story remind you God has not forgotten you. Let's begin. There was once a small village hidden between hills and dry fields. For many years, people there lived peacefully. Children played freely. Farmers harvested plenty of crops. Families gathered every evening with grateful hearts. But then, everything changed. The rains stopped coming. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The rivers became shallow. The soil cracked beneath their feet. And the village well slowly began to dry up. Fear spread everywhere. Parents worried about feeding their children. Farmers watched their crops die. Some families packed their belongings and prepared to leave forever. But in the middle of all the fear, there was one young woman who still held on to hope. Her name was Grace. Every morning before sunrise, Grace would wake quietly, wrap a cloth around her shoulders, pick up 2 empty jars and walk to the old village well. The journey was long and tiring. Dust covered her sandals. The morning air felt cold. And each day, there was less water than the day before. Still, Grace never stopped praying. As she walked, she whispered, "Lord, please help us. Please provide for this village. Please don't leave us alone." Some villagers laughed at her faith. She prays too much, they said. Faith won't bring rain. We need solutions, not prayers. But Grace continued trusting God anyway, because deep inside her heart, she believed God was still listening. One evening, Grace returned home carrying only a small amount of water. It was barely enough for herself and her younger brother Daniel. That night, the village felt quieter than ever. No laughter, no music, only worry. Grace sat outside beneath the fading orange sky and prayed softly. "Lord, I don't understand why this is happening, but I know you are still good. Please help us trust you." Just then, she noticed an elderly traveler walking slowly down the dusty road. His clothes were worn, his face looked tired, and his lips were dry from thirst. He stopped in front of Grace and asked, "My child, may I please have some water?" Grace froze. She looked down at the jar in her hands. It was the last water they had. Fear whispered inside her mind, "If you give this away, what will happen to you and Daniel?" But then another voice rose stronger in her. "Trust me." Grace took a slow breath. Then gently, she handed the traveler the jar. "Take it," she said softly. The old man drank slowly and gratefully. Then he looked into her eyes and smiled. "Kindness shown during drought," he said, "is never forgotten in heaven." Grace felt peace fill her heart. Before she could respond, the traveler continued walking down the road until he disappeared into the darkness. That night, Grace went to sleep hungry and uncertain, but somehow her heart felt lighter, because faith often begins where comfort ends. The next morning, Grace woke before sunrise once again. She picked up her empty jars and walked towards the well. But something felt different. As she approached, she heard a sound she hadn't heard in months. Water! She stopped walking. Her eyes widened. The well was overflowing with fresh, clear water. Villagers came running from every direction. Children shouted with joy. Women cried tears of relief. Men fell to their knees, thanking God. The dry village suddenly felt alive again. And standing beside the overflowing well, Grace quietly wept, not because she understood everything, but because she realized God had been faithful all along. The village elder looked at Grace and said, "God remembered us," but Grace understood something even deeper that day. God had never forgotten them, even during the silence, even during the waiting, even during the drought. And maybe someone watching this today needs to hear that too. You may feel tired, you may feel uncertain, you may feel like your prayers are unanswered, but God still sees you. And sometimes the greatest miracles begin with one small act of faith, one prayer, one act of kindness, one moment of trusting God when fear says not to. John 7:38 says, "Whoever believes in me, rivers of living water will flow from within them." An important lesson from this story is that our faith will sometimes be tested. Grace had to choose between fear and trust. She didn't understand what God was doing, but she chose faith anyway. And many times in life, our faith is tested most during the waiting, the silence, and the difficult seasons. But those moments can also become the moments where we grow closer to God and see His faithfulness the most. Another powerful lesson from this story is that God can use one person's faith to bless many others. Grace may have felt small and unnoticed, but her obedience, kindness, and trust in God became a blessing to the entire village. Sometimes we think our faith only affects us, but God can use one faithful person to bring hope, healing, encouragement, and breakthrough to many people around them. Never underestimate what God can do through one person who chooses to have faith in Him. What was your biggest lesson or takeaway from this story? Have you ever experienced a season where you had to trust God even when things felt uncertain? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story encouraged your heart today, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Peaceful Faith Co, and share this message with someone who needs hope. And remember, God is still working, even in the drought. Until next time, bye-bye.